fellow Falcoholics. What is up? Welcome to another episode of the Falcoholic Live. I'm your host, Kevin. I am Falcoholic Kevin, joined by, of course, my co-host, Adnan Ikic, and our special guest tonight, Aaron Freeman at Locked On Falcons. We were planning to have just a very normal, preseason discussion. We were going to talk about the depth chart. We're going to talk about the week 2 games, some guys we liked, guys we were looking at in the third preseason game. Now we got to shove all that into like the final time slot tonight because we have to talk about the Falcons having right tackle starter Kaleb McGary go down at practice and get carted off, which is very alarming to say the least. And then they also drop on us, a couple hours later, oh yeah, backup tackle Storm Norton had surgery yesterday and will be out for 6 to 8 weeks. And we just decided to just not tell you. We just waited until now so we could give it all to you at once and you could just, feel the pain intensely, which is how I spent my afternoon, and I imagine everyone else that covered the team also spent it, feverishly writing news articles about how the Falcons no longer have any tackle depth or even a right tackle at all to speak of. So, in summary, Adnan, how are you doing today?
Not good.
Not great.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not great. It's honestly, I feel like it's the most anxious show that we've had in a long time because we now hold our breath regarding Kaleb McGary, regarding the MRI. Because, at this point, someone gets carted off in camp. A lot of times it's just a precaution because, they have carts all over the place out there. And, there's no need to do what the Jaguars did with Trevor Lawrence last year and make him walk a mile into the locker rooms, into the medical place. But it didn't sound great because they said the music got cut off, all the players huddled around him, and it's not great. My first initial thought was that this is really bad, but at least we have Storm Norton. Storm Norton's a very, very capable swing tackle. He's proven himself last year. He stepped in for 4 weeks. Very good swing tackle. And then after the Storm Norton news hit, then it's just, okay, where do we go from here? This is just terrible. And then, we didn't even mention Ray McLeod also got hurt today because that was the first injury before these two, major ones. So, yeah, it's not good. It sort of is eerily, slightly reminiscent to 2018. Where the team just had starters, drop like flies over the first couple of weeks. And then sort of, we know how that season ended up after all of the promise heading into it. But hopefully it'll be a better result. And, hopefully Kaleb McGary gets very good news tomorrow.
Yeah, that's certainly the hope. We'll see what happens with that. It certainly feels very dark at the moment. And coincidentally, we have the mayor of McGary Island here tonight. I don't think any of us were ready for this news to drop, but it's good timing. I know this news has probably hit you especially hard, Aaron. How are you doing this evening?
Yeah, we've done a lot of renovations on McGary Island these last couple of years. It was a 1-star resort a couple of years ago when they made me the director of the Board of Tourism. And slowly I've worked my way up. We're now the mayor of the island, and we were 1-star, and now we're a 3-star. And unfortunately, this hurricane came through, and we're just hoping that it's just a Category 1 hurricane, and it's just light damage. Just light damage. A couple of weeks of practice, he misses, and he'll be back. But we're potentially worried that it might be a Category 5 hurricane, which is pure devastation. And if that's the case, then obviously we'll talk more about it. But that could have very big ramifications for this upcoming season.
Yeah, no kidding. A major spot where the Falcons were kind of playing it a little dangerously with their depth. Obviously, we were expecting, and with the knowledge that you have Storm Norton, you're not too concerned about pulling in, ready to go tackle depth. But I think we had all brought up the fact that it was a career year for Kaleb McGary. He wasn't signed before the draft, so I think all eyes were on the team adding a potential swing tackle competitor, whether that was on day 2, whether that was on day 3. The Falcons do end up drafting Jack Nelson, in the 7th round, but I mean, that's pretty late. And as we're seeing, I think with Jack Nelson, it's pretty clear that that is a developmental move, not a move that's likely to pay dividends anytime soon. Jack Nelson's not at all ready to get out there. So we're going to break it all down for you guys tonight. We're going to talk about the injury, what we know, which, admittedly is not a whole lot. But also what we've heard about Storm Norton, which that was the other side of the coin. It's like, well, if Storm can come back, then it'll be okay. Nope, never mind. He's definitely out for a long time, and we just decided not to say anything yesterday. Cool. Thanks, guys. I'm just irritated by that. Not that it matters at all. Like if we had heard yesterday or today, it would be equally devastating. But it is what it is there. But we're going to break it down, guys. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to what options the Falcons have in-house. Elijah Wilkinson hive. I was standing Elijah Wilkinson all offseason. I wasn't prepared for this opportunity. So we've got a chance to do something great, Elijah. So let's get it done. But in the very, very likely situation where Elijah Wilkinson hive does not pan out here, the Falcons are probably going to have to do something else. How bold that move is, we could talk about tonight. We're going to get to all that. And then, of course, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about the other news from today, the training camp the last couple of days, stuff, topics going into preseason week 3. So thanks for joining us tonight, guys. Real quick, I know we've had a lot of signups lately for the Falcoholic supporter fantasy leagues. So if you want to get in on that, if you have subscribed to Patreon or you haven't done that yet and you want to get in, you have a couple more days. We're going to be closing the leagues at Saturday morning. So if you're not in the leagues yet or you haven't filled out the form, please do that. The link to that is on Patreon. It's on the Discord in the Patreon member channel. It's also posted in the members area of the YouTube channel. If you want to get in and you haven't signed up for any of those things yet, you can still do so up until Saturday morning, but please, the sooner the better for our planning purposes. Patreon.com/Falcoholic Live or the YouTube channel memberships. All of the paid tiers get you access, so pick whichever one seems the best fit for you. We appreciate all that support, obviously, and we're looking forward to playing another season with you guys. And yeah, subscribe if you enjoy the show. Obviously, more somber topic than we were hoping for on this Wednesday evening, but we're going to cover it as diligently as we can and see what we can figure out on tonight's program. And real quick, on that note, I noticed the Falcons were previously earlier this offseason hovering as high as 15th, 16th in the rankings in terms of odds for odds to make the NFL playoffs. I believe they were as low as plus 118 at one point. Now per FanDuel, I don't know if this changed within the last couple of hours or what. They're now down to plus 132 on FanDuel, below the Cardinals. And they're now, I think, in 17th or 18th place in the odds. Now, obviously, from 118 to 132 is not a really significant odds change, but it's just more sort of notable that this injury to Kaleb McGary could have serious ramifications for the team season, and Vegas even, I think, has picked up on that pretty quickly. So, Aaron, I mean, at this point, we don't know how long Kaleb McGary is out, but given that he's out and Storm Norton is definitely out, I mean, what's your level of concern at this moment, given the fact that we don't currently have a right tackle on the roster?
Yeah, my main concern really is about the run blocking. I don't think losing Kaleb McGary is going to be devastating to the pass protection. I don't think all of a sudden, Michael Penix is going to die, because Kaleb McGary was just an average pass protector, the entire time. So it's not like a replacement level right tackle is going to be a massive drop off to the point where their offensive line is going to cease functioning. But it's probably going to be a drop off. But to me, the real big drop-off is with the run blocking, because so much of the Falcons' run game is really predicated on that right side, with Lindstrom and McGary being just elite, essentially, with how they, want to roll their offense. And so for me, the real challenges that the Falcons are going to have to face for however long Kaleb McGary's out, whether it's, a week or, a year or whatever, is the adjustments that they're going to have to make to how they're going to play offensively. We saw this happen in 2022 when Arthur Smith basically was just we're going to spam play action passing, because we watched this offensive line get absolutely annihilated last year. and it really hurt the team. And so we're going to go for a league low amount of straight drop back passing attack. And so I would imagine the Falcons hopefully will do something similar, but already been pushing for the Falcons to dial up their play action passing way up anyway. So now this is just more incentive for them to do so. And then the other issue is the challenges of the Falcons' second string offensive line that we've seen in the preseason is they can't run the football particularly well. But basically, other than Nathan Carter busting, a couple of long runs against the Titans, their run game was pretty much non-existent in both preseason games. And, the thing about the preseason, they're running vanilla concepts and they're running basic plays. Like they're running, their stretch outside zone play, which is their bread and butter run play. And it is not effective in the preseason games. And that tells you that the guys are not being able to execute those basics. And so that's going to really challenge their ability to run that in the regular season without Kaleb McGary, because even with a healthy Storm Norton, that was not something Storm Norton was great at when he got the opportunity to start in the past. And there was a reason why you go back to that 2023 season late in the year when Kaleb McGary was out for a couple of games. The Falcons' run game kind of fell off a cliff that week over those 3 games. Now, it wasn't just Kaleb McGary that was dealing with injuries during that time, so that was also a contributing factor to it. But it's one of those things where the other thing that the Falcons, I think, are going to have to do, regardless of who they figure out to replace him, unless that guy's going to be an outstanding outside zone run blocker, they're probably going to have to diversify their run game. Now, again, that's another thing that I've been calling for the Falcons to do more of this year as part of their way to try to, vary up their pitches, so to speak. They have a good fastball with the outside zone, but once teams can figure out that's the only pitch you have, they'll be able to figure out to stop it. That's a big reason why the Falcons run game fell off from 2022 to 2023. And so hopefully they'll diversify. They were already planning on diversifying. Zach Robinson said he plans on diversifying, but the Falcons say a lot of things, and ultimately, I've learned over many, many years of being a fan of the Falcons, I will wait till you show me rather than what you've told me that you're going to do. But I think it's one of those things, the other thing with the diversifying the run game, that's been a thing that could help add more explosive runs to this offense. We saw Nathan Carter get a explosive run in the preseason game, not on an outside zone run. And so that's an element that's been a reason why they haven't been at as many explosive runs with Bijan Robinson these last couple of years, because they're so reliant on the outside zone. So I think the key for the Falcons, regardless of who they find to replace Kaleb McGary for however long they have to replace Kaleb McGary, is there's going to have to be some serious adjustments to how they scheme up their offense. And if they make those adjustments, I think they'll be fine, right? But if they have a significant drop-off in the performance of whoever fills the shoes at right tackle, and the Falcons are just we're just going to keep doing what we're doing because it worked for us last year, I don't think it's going to work for them this year. And that's where you wonder, can the Falcons offense reach the ceiling that it is capable of reaching with all these things going in the direction in checking all these boxes? And obviously, sorry, Kevin, I've been checking out the show lately. I don't know how high you guys are on the Falcons defense, but I think it's capable of being a decent defense, but I don't think the defense is going to drive this team to the playoffs. And so if they're going to make the playoffs, it's going to be because they have an elite offense. And this absence potentially has a dramatic impact on whether or not they can reach elite status if they get a significant drop-off in performance, as well if they don't make, in my opinion, the proper adjustments in terms of their scheme.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we all have similar thoughts in terms of the defense. I think the preseason has been encouraging, but it's not all of a sudden the defense is good. It's well, maybe they can be not bottom 10 or bottom 12 anymore. Maybe they can get into the teens, and that would be a big step forward for them. And I think would be enough if the offense is close to what we think it could be. But yeah, I mean, this is obviously a major loss. There's not really compelling options at tackle. And that is going to make this a challenge for the Falcons to figure out. Assuming McGary misses significant time, which is probably the favorite. That's the odds-on favorite right now. But again, we don't really know much else other than that. Adnan, I know we were both, excited to see McGary get the extension, and we're pretty happy to have him stick around. But this news is obviously disappointing. I mean, I'm happy for him that he was able to get that contract before the injury. Like, he would be in a bad spot if he were to be going to have this injury with no extension going into a contract year. That would have been a brutal turn of events for him. So, how are you feeling at this point with the injury news?
I mean, yeah, I'm just very sort of cautiously optimistic that it'll be better, but maybe that's just me coping. That's probably just me coping. Yeah, I don't know. Like, to Aaron's point about the Falcons not adjusting and about, switching up their pitches. I remember at training camp last year, that's exactly what Zach Robinson was talking about, we're going to come in, and Zach Robinson was at one of the post-practice press conferences, and he used that same analogy about, diversifying the pitches, throwing a little bit of a curveball and, a change up and changing up the run game from the year before. And then we saw last year they didn't really do that much. Like, they still ran outside zone to the right. Like,
it was like 70% of the time. Well, total outside zone was like 71%.
Yeah, it was like something insane. So it's like, to me, I'm with you on that one, Aaron. Until they actually do it, I'm not going to believe that they will. And it just feels like a very Falcons thing to do, to just sort of, run into that brick wall of, well, it worked last year, so we're just going to like keep doing it like over and over again. The first thing that came to my mind, if McGary is out for a bit, is will they start planning Charlie Warner next to the right tackle a little bit more? But then in that case, are they going to run some more 12 personnel with Kyle Pitts out there as well? They didn't run much 12 personnel last season. So it's a very sort of complex, it's a very complex equation right now where you lose, this piece of your offense, and all of a sudden, like, now there could be a lot of moving parts. And the thing that we know about moving parts is if one of those gets tied up and one of those doesn't do what they're supposed to, it can absolutely tank everything. Now, with the Falcons, I don't really like what we've seen from the tackles, especially in the preseason. But it sort of felt like, okay, like, none of these guys are going to play during the season. We have Kaleb McGary, we have Storm Norton. And then you sort of see just how quickly things can just like turn on their heads, because as of right now, I think on the roster today, Elijah Wilkinson's probably starting week 1 and Jack Nelson is probably the backup. I'm sure we're going to get into some of the options the Falcons have in-house, out of house. But I will say that as of right now, I feel like it would be malpractice if the team didn't do something to address the tackle position, whether via free agency, via trade, via moving things around. They did, fortunately, clear up, I think, $12 million in cap space with the McGary extension. I don't know how reluctant they will or won't be when it comes to their draft picks, because they are down a first rounder next year. But also at the same time, Terry Fontenot's job may be on the line this year. That's probably why they're down a first rounder. And it would be hard to imagine that he just sort of sits on his hands without trying everything possible to sort of salvage the season if Kaleb McGary is out for an extended period of time.
Yeah. I can't imagine that they'll do nothing here, but what they're doing now is probably what I would expect until we hear more about the nature of McGary's injury, like seeing what they can get out of Elijah Wilkinson. And maybe it's fortunate that they were already sort of giving him some run at tackle, during the preseason. That probably was a sign that they were a little bit more concerned about Storm Norton than they were letting on, which again, like, the handling of the Storm Norton injury is probably going to be something that comes back to bite them. Because again, you look back at Friday's game, they're playing Elijah Wilkinson at tackle. That tends to lead you to believe that, well, you're trying to find another swing tackle, at least temporarily. and then on Tuesday you have the surgery. But like if they had gotten this surgery done 2 weeks ago when Norton got hurt originally, then we might be talking about him only missing a week or two of the season at best instead of, 4 to 6 games. So I'm curious to know more about how that played out. Not that we necessarily will ever get that information, but at this stage, there's not a lot of compelling options out there in free agency. I know Jedrick Wills has been one that's been mentioned, but again, like Wills has said, he wants to sit out the year because of his injury. Who knows how serious he is about that? Maybe Falcons kick the tires on that. George Fant just re-signed with the team. He was previously a possible option. Isaiah Wynn's out there, but we haven't seen him play successfully. Nicholas Petit-Frere was like the worst starting tackle in the NFL last year, so that's not an option. So, the list of options appears to grow quite thin in terms of free agency. But maybe Wilkinson or some other guys on the roster could be in play here. We're going to get to that in just a moment. I got a couple questions here. Had NC Hammer. I believe, NC, you're trying to bemoan. I don't know if you're bemoaning the lack of starters in the preseason. Let me know if that's what you're trying to say there. But yeah, I mean, to me, this doesn't really that's not really the argument here. It's everyone's got a chance to get injured in practice. There's no way of getting around that. What if you're pro preseason or, con playing starters in preseason? I don't really think this injury has anything to do with that. Personally, I feel like that's a separate argument with separate, things going on. Whereas McGary getting injured in practice has nothing to do with the preseason, in my opinion. It's sort of just it is what it is. It's unfortunate. If McGary got injured in the preseason game, then we could spark this great debate up once again. But yeah, to me, it's I don't really have anything to say about the preseason. On this note, I mean, I know Adnan has extremely strong preseason takes, but Adnan, we'll go to you on this. Does this infuriate or pacify you with regards to the preseason, or is it kind of just not really relevant in your mind?
I don't think it's relevant at all. It's a practice injury. It's, I feel like this is as relevant to the preseason as if, McGary getting hurt in summer workouts would be.
Yeah, I feel the same. Yeah, it's by your reaction, Aaron. I assume you feel similarly as well. So. Yeah.
I think the preseason debates, it's fascinating to me that it's still going on, and it's just haven't we known for a month that they're not going to play the guys in the I don't understand why this is I get it why it's the thing, because this Monday we found out officially that they will not be playing in the preseason.
Doesn't make me any less mad, Aaron.
but I'm just okay. And then Monday everybody had their fallout about it, and then then we move on. I don't know. It's just I'm pro playing guys in the preseason, but it ain't that serious to still be upset about it on a Wednesday when Kaleb McGary gets hurt in practice, and let's figure out a way to incorporate this into our preseason or don't play them, not play them arguments. I don't know. It's weird to me that it's still going on, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. And I not to take anything away from the burning fires of rebellion that Adnan is stoking out there, and then I feel like Trayshawn and Adnan are on polar opposite sides of this debate, and I'm just maybe we should have some kind of cage match on the pod or something. But in this case, it's I feel like actually this is something that everyone can agree it just sucks. It is. There's not really anything else to say about it. But we also had Ryan H with $5. Thank you very much, Ryan. Appreciate you. Saying, who we haven't talked about, Jalen Mayfield. He's still got tread on the tires, even though those tires might be flat. By the way, Mayfield wore 77 and McGary wears 76. So actually, I think he's one better. I think that's how numbers work. So yeah, that checks out to me. Also why, I was team Storm Norton, clearly, number 77 over 76. So, yeah, it's, I unfortunately, I don't think Jalen Mayfield is, even if the Falcons wanted him, I feel like the relationship there is too sour to even consider such a crazy outcome. But, yeah, also
I could use the content though.
I mean, if all else fails, just for the content. But I feel like maybe Jack Nelson is the new Jalen Mayfield that people are going to just latch on to as like the worst offensive lineman ever if he actually has to see the field. So I'm really hoping Jack Nelson doesn't have to endure that this year.
He's going down a very, very prestigious list. You had, was it Peter Kahns, Lamar Holmes, Mike Person. All three of those guys were on the same offensive line one year, actually. Sean Harlow, a personal favorite of mine. So it's a very long list. It's like the avatars. When Aang goes into avatar mode, and Jack Nelson is now Avatar Aang, and Mayfield is Avatar Roku, and it just goes down the list.
Yep. Oh man. Yes, thank you.
it.
Thank you for that. We got to Stardew Valley on Tuesday Takes, and now we're getting the deep
poster in the background.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate it.
Yes.
I'm with you. Like, there's a whole bunch of people in the audience who are like, what is he talking about?
What the hell are they on about? Yeah. Yep.
If you haven't seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, premier television.
Yes. Great
Not
show.
the Netflix show. Watch the original.
Yeah,
cartoon.
the animated one. Yeah. Shout out. The Secret Tunnel song is like forever stuck in my head also. So shout out. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of great options, guys, to replace Kaleb McGary if he is going to be out. They would have to consider a trade more or less. And again, like, who's trading away starting tackles? Like, nobody. Unless you're willing to pay a premium, and like, do you really want to do that? That is maybe some of these teams, are like have an extra tackle that they could be convinced to part with, but I mean, even that seems pretty dicey. So it might be sort of we just have to survive until Storm Norton returns, hopefully on the early end, where maybe he's back after the bye, so he only ends up missing 4 games instead of 5 or 6. That's probably the most rosy like outcome to expect here. But like, I don't know where else to go here. I mean, I raised I went ahead and went back to my Matthew Bergeron conspiracy theory after the McGary extension. Honestly, thought I was gonna have to put the conspiracy theory to rest. Like, but this is my opportunity. This is my chance. It's like, okay. And I want you, Aaron, I see you smiling, so I need you to tell me how crazy it is. But I did actually like Trayshawn's take on it, which was, no, don't move Bergeron to right tackle, move him to left tackle. Then we move Jake Matthews over. Then we get really insane with it because at that point we're just like, well, F it. Like, let's just, maybe we just, try to get the best 5 out there and who cares. But obviously, this is all, nightmare scenario stuff. Like, I'm not suggesting Bergeron moves out to right tackle to play right tackle for like 3 or 4 games until Storm Norton comes back. It's like McGary's out, and like even when Norton comes back, there's no guarantee we won't need like him to play another tackle spot because somebody else is hurt. So we can't necessarily just bank on him coming back. So maybe we dust off the old Kaleb McGary offensive tackle tape, get him out there. He's obviously got the measurables for it. He's got the arm length. But at the same time, there's a reason they converted him to guard, I assume. So what do you think about that crazy theory, Aaron? Because to me, other than maybe Elijah Wilkinson is the only other guy, and I don't know. I don't feel, even as like the captain of the Elijah Wilkinson train, like I'm still very concerned about that outcome. So where are you at on the Bergeron conspiracy situation?
Well, I just think it's funny that you're like, let's get the best 5 out there, and the best 5 is Elijah Wilkinson, but not at right tackle. It's at left guard, and Bergeron at left tackle, and Jake Matthews at right tackle. And it's just like, okay, we're just shuffling this thing, and somehow this specific combination of these guys is a better combination than just all the guys staying at their position and just plugging Elijah Wilkinson at right tackle and just chipping every single snap. I don't know.
Maybe
that feels like the path of least resistance to me. But again, crazy ideas have happened. But when it comes to Bergeron at tackle, I remember watching him at Syracuse and then watching him at the Senior Bowl. And I was like, I think he's good enough to play tackle in the NFL, but I never, ever really thought of him as ever a guy that was going to be a good tackle. He was always kind of a guy that was like, well, in the 3rd round, you're looking around and you're thinking, okay, like there's not a whole lot of options out, and we'll just draft Matthew Bergeron and he'll be our, offensive tackle or something like that. And like that, it's kind of a similar story, I think, with Kaleb McGary, who was a guy when he was coming out was sort of seen as that, and then circumstances were like the Falcons were like, oh, there's a run on tackles at the top of the 2019 draft. We got to make sure we get our guy, and they traded up to get Kaleb McGary, and everybody was freaking out. Why did you draft this guy that was projected to go in the third round and the first round? And then you look back in hindsight, and it's like, oh, because pretty much every other tackle that was drafted after him, with the exception of Jawan Taylor, sucks. And Jawan Taylor is a penalty machine that is basically the polar opposite of Kaleb McGary, which is a pretty good pass protector if you can forgive the 75 false starts he has every year, and a pretty terrible run blocker. But everybody else sucks. Shout out to Greg Little and the Carolina Panthers. But yeah, so like I feel like Bergeron as a tackle is like, to me, like a really truly a last resort, where if you plug in Elijah Wilkinson and you're like, oh, I guess we got to play either Brandon Parker or Jack Nelson, and we know that's going to be a disaster. So, all right, well, let's put Bergeron at tackle, and then we'll put Hinton or Wilkinson at guard, and maybe that will keep. But I feel like you should be able to exhaust at least a decent free agent option before you get to that point. So, I've never been a big believer in the idea that Bergeron has a future at tackle. Like, that to me was like, if he fails at guard, then he's probably failing in the NFL. And if he's good at guard, then why are we moving him to tackle? So it was always just kind of, you got this one shot, and if it works, then great. If it doesn't work, then you're moving on anyway. So the Bergeron to tackle stuff doesn't move me, but again, give me a couple of games where Michael Penix getting hit 12 times, and that might be enough to move me off of that thing.
Yeah, no, I totally get that angle. I think I was dealing with the early stages of loss here. Like, it's more like the denial stage. Like, nope, it's fine. Like, you know what? We could just move three guys around and it'll be okay. You know how the Infinity Gauntlet works. You can't just put them in any order. It has to be the specific order or it doesn't work. So you got to make sure you slot them in right. Maybe you just got to move them around a little bit. Then the glove works. We can snap the Saints out of existence or whatever they want to do. So,
are we nerds?
we might be.
I'm beginning to become concerned about that. Yeah. Beginning. Yeah.
Just have an epiphany. Like,
yeah.
Is this who we are?
Wait a second. Yeah. I think I was well aware of that. I was at a Renfest this weekend, so I'm not. I was already pretty clear on that one. But yeah. I think we're beginning to understand more deeply there. But yeah, Adnan, what do you think about the situation? Where would you go here? I mean, are you team Wilkinson, team Bergeron, team offensive line chaos, team Jack Nelson, team Jalen Mayfield?
No, not team Jack Nelson. No.
Don't put that evil on me.
Yeah. No, I'm more so with Aaron regarding keeping Matthew Bergeron where he is. I just don't like the idea of so many moving parts. And I think one of the best things the Falcons have going for them, probably the best thing they have going for them on this entire team, is that guard combination between Matthew Bergeron and Chris Lindstrom. And I think we're all hopeful that Bergeron takes another step this year and really showcases himself as one of those upper echelon guards in this league. And we already know Lindstrom is the best guard in the NFL. So I like the idea of the Falcons sort of playing to their strength when it comes to that versus, if you move Bergeron to a tackle position, he's most likely going to be a below average tackle. And then the guard that you end up replacing him with probably won't be anything better than an average guard versus I like more so the philosophy of, catering to your strength and keeping everything else as strong as possible and then sort of, plugging and playing. The one thing I will sort of advocate for, or one thing that I wouldn't be against, would be moving Jake Matthews to right tackle just to be the blindside protector of Michael Penix. Now, I know this isn't a game of Madden. You can't just plug Jake Matthews in a right tackle and then he goes from an 85 to an 84, on his rating points, and it is what it is. The one thing that's sort of helping me cope a little bit is, it was a long time ago, but Matthews was trained via a full NFL offseason at the right tackle position his rookie year. So and then, of course, we remember Sam Baker got hurt. He was plugged into left tackle, and then, from there it was history. I just am very weary. Like, if we play Elijah Wilkinson, I'm just very, very wary about Elijah Wilkinson protecting Penix's blindside. I'm just really worried about Penix's blindside because right tackle on the Atlanta Falcons is the joint most important right tackle position in the NFL with the Dolphins because there's two left-handed quarterbacks in the NFL, in Tua and Penix. And I know that, Matthews probably won't be as effective on the right side as he is on the left side, but that's where the line in the sand for me comes when it comes to the blind side of the quarterback. And, I feel like Wilkinson would probably be one of the worst blind side blockers in the NFL that we've seen in a very long time. So I wouldn't be against the idea of planning Matthews on that side, putting Wilkinson at left tackle, and then just sort of helping him, putting Warner next to him, chipping, and just sort of trying to weather that storm until Storm can get back.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I don't think it's totally crazy, especially if we know, like, okay, we just need to get through a few weeks, figure out where Wilkinson's most comfortable. Wilkinson didn't look great at left tackle, so maybe we should give him a chance at right. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, Matthews, hasn't played right tackle in a long time, but a guy as experienced as him, maybe he's more capable of swapping over there. And if that is the most important position on this offensive line, maybe the Falcons just want someone they can rely on more there, and they'll sort of make do at left. But yeah, it's dicey. All right, before we continue that, let me get to a couple of these donations. Thanks so much, guys. We got Rod with the $2. Thank you. He says, what about going after a UFL guy? The Falcons have certainly dipped into the UFA market. I think, if I remember correctly, Tyrone Wheatley, who unfortunately also just ended up waived injured, was a UFL tackle at one point that they liked. So they have kind of dipped in there. I mean, they obviously can keep looking and see if there's anybody left. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about the UFL to know if there's anyone like that might be an option there. But yeah, it wouldn't be the worst idea in the world, at least to get through the rest of the camp in preseason. But that's certainly one to consider. We got Justin Knight with the $5. What's up, Justin? Thank you, man. Says, I'm high. Okay, good to know. Yeah. Congrats. Says Evan Neal. I know it's nuts, but it wouldn't cost us much, and maybe change of scenery helps. I mean, if the cost was extremely low, okay. But yeah, I mean, Evan Neal hasn't really shown anything to give you any confidence in his ability. So, I mean, if they're just trying to offload him, then yeah, I would consider that. But otherwise, I'm not really sure he's an upgrade over like Elijah Wilkinson, where it's like, I mean, yeah, we're not. At least Elijah Wilkinson has been a solid interior starter from time to time, occasionally, perhaps. We got Alex Foster with the $5. Thank you, Alex. Appreciate you. Says, with all the references on the show lately, I just bought myself a bag of senzu beans and I'm headed to Flowery Branch. So I'll let. Well, maybe that's the way. That maybe you can be. We'll let Terry know you're coming. He can get you a contract as soon as possible. Just make sure you have enough to get all the way through the season. Yeah. So make sure you brought enough to make it all 17 games. That's all I ask. So. Shout out to the great reference there too. We got Corey with the $2 saying, if we can just get Penix to start throwing right-handed, the situation improves immensely. Yeah, I mean, I didn't think of that one. That one's an out of the box. That's an out of the box thought, Corey. Thanks for adding that one too. So we can throw that in and add that to the mix. But yeah, Aaron, I mean, at this point we're talking out of the box options, right? Because the in the box options are questionable at best. So is it Evan Neal? Is it, some other guy? Where's your mind at? Or do you think it's just the best option is just to stand pat and see what we can do?
The Evan Neal one does not move me. This is not the time for a reclamation project, right? Like, this is a time for give me the highest floor player that you can possibly find, and we'll figure out the rest. I don't need a high ceiling. I'm not trying to replace Kaleb McGary. I'm just like, give me a 5 out of 10 player that is competent that I can just work around. If all the other pieces on the offensive line are doing their job, we can figure out one guy, especially at right tackle, because the Falcons did that for several years when Kaleb McGary was sucking for the first 3 years of his NFL career, where they were able to try to make it work for the most part. We can use Charlie Warner and Kyle Pitts to chip and all that stuff, and again, run a ton of play action to prevent that guy from being stuck on an island and whatnot. So, I don't know who that option is. Who's the highest floor guy? Like, again, as you said, Kevin, like, if we had known a little bit earlier, if we had found out some news maybe a little bit earlier about Storm Norton's status, maybe we could have gotten George Fant, and that would have been the solution to the problem. We missed that signing by 24 hours or whatever it was when he signed with Washington. So that would have been a serviceable option for the Falcons. So there's not a player that comes to mind. I'm like Jason Peters. He seems like he wants to play football forever, but he retired in February, and apparently I think in the Seahawks front office or something like that. But maybe he stayed in shape for the last 6 months. Tyron Smith. Maybe he stayed in shape for the last couple of months as he retired with the Cowboys. It does feel like unless a team is going to trade, I don't know, like I was looking at some rosters and some 53-man roster projections, and was looking at the Eagles because they picked up Kendall Lamb, who was a guy that Dwayne Ledford coached at Appalachian State like a decade ago, and spent the last couple of years sort of being a backup in Miami, where the Falcons' assistant offensive line coach, Sean Flaherty, was an assistant for several years. And I saw some reports that maybe like Kendall Lamb would be cut before week 1 as a way to sneak him onto the roster so they don't have to guarantee his contract or something like that. But like maybe we give the Eagles a call. Howie Roseman's always looking to trade somebody. So it's like, hey, you don't need Kendall Lamb, do you? Like, hey, like, what do you want for Kendall Lamb? We got a Clark Phillips here. We got, what are you looking for? I hear you need cornerback help, right? Adoree Jackson's been sucking, right? What do you need? But we got some corners. We can give you something. So like, to me, that's like probably the best option. I don't know, but like, we'll just sort of have to see, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, to me, the guy that I look at, there was some buzz about him being possibly a cut candidate or someone that like could be maybe like a cheap pick swap type of guy. Andre Dillard on the 49ers. There seems to be some buzz there. Again, a guy that's been very up and down, but has been okay at times. Was good and
fans would agree with that one, but yeah,
well, yeah. I mean, at times, not saying again, if we're looking for someone to get us through 4 to 6 weeks.
I agree with you. That's fair.
You could do worse than Andre Dillard. But we'll have to see if he's someone that actually is cut. But that could maybe be an option. But Adnan, is there anyone that you're looking at this point in terms of a possible replacement, or are you team just throw your hands up and pray?
I mean, obviously we've been praying, or the first thing to do right now is to throw your hands up and pray. I don't know, would Dante Smith be an option? He missed all of last year with an injury, but he's from Augusta, so maybe maybe there's a homecoming there. The former Bengals tackle, I don't know. Like, basically, right now, the team is probably going to wait for final cuts no matter what. Like, I wouldn't expect any move to be made immediately. I mean, obviously, we don't even know what the injury is. So, I mean, we won't know anything concrete until probably tomorrow, next couple days. But I do expect, maybe there's some viable candidates that come about, during final cuts, that there always seem to be here and there. So I just know that the team needs to do something. Like I don't know if they're going to go into week 1 with Elijah Wilkinson and then Jack Nelson as a swing tackle, but that doesn't really fill me with confidence. So I'm definitely in sort of wait and see mode right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, obviously, like you said, at final cuts, we can see if there's anything that shows up, but I assume the competition will be pretty fierce for anyone that does come available. Obviously, the prospect of like starting for the Falcons for an indeterminate amount of time might help them get a deal done with someone. But it's sketchy. Guys that just guys to consider. I know there was a mention of like former Rams guys or current Rams guys, like Joseph Noteboom had to fill in for the Rams. He's currently on the Ravens. He's a guy that I imagine you'd have to trade for, though. So I don't know if there's a possibility there, but he's only 30. It could be okay.
What would be the maximum that you would be? Let's say McGary is out for a while, for a very long time. What would be the maximum that you would trade if it does come to that?
5th, I guess. I don't like it, but yeah, probably a 5th. I mean, they don't have a first. Like, they can't afford to drop this season.
They already traded their 5th, but that was the pick that came to my mind too.
Yeah.
I think, wasn't that part of the trade up for Xavier Watts? They traded a 5th.
Yeah.
Xavier Watts.
I mean, maybe. Yeah, I think you're right. So I mean, maybe they could trade the equivalent of a 5th, like a 6th this year and a 6th next year or something. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know that a 5th is super necessary for most of the guys we're talking about, but like they may have to do like a 6th and a 7th or, something like that. But yeah, I mean, maybe they could throw in a player. If there's somebody like, maybe we could do a Kyle Pitts trade. That's for the SEO. Yeah, this is how democracy dies. Yeah, Kyle Pitts traded for an offensive tackle at final cuts. But yeah, I don't have a whole lot there, but yeah, I mean 5th-ish type of compensation. Yeah, I know Trevor in the chat said Algier for a right tackle. I mean, again, I don't think anybody wants to trade Algier, but if you were able to do that and like you absolutely need a tackle, then I think you'd have to consider doing that. Just depending on the severity of McGary's injury again. But yeah, I mean, I know Dalton Reisner's out there. He's played tackle before, but he's one of those guys that's definitely better inside. Yeah, there's not a whole lot that I'm excited about out here. So maybe you're just praying that one of these guys gets cut, or you maybe can pry away like an Andre Dillard for a 6th rounder or something. I mean, I think maybe Chris Hubbard is still out there. I think he had a disastrous season with the Giants last year, but the Giants O-line was pretty bad. Yeah.
On the bright side, at least, like, there's no big games to start the season where Storm Norton is out, so that at least we can sort of, at least that's the silver lining in all of this.
Yeah, there's nothing important at all. Yeah. I mean, maybe they just maybe they just phone it in and they're like, yeah, whatever. We're going like these are like the probably 4 of the 6 hardest games in the schedule. So we're just going to, chalk up the opening, and we're going to have to do our work in the second half of the season. And, I'm sure nothing bad will happen.
I appreciate that, Adnan, because you had me going for a second. I was like, is he being serious? I was like, it was 5 seconds where I was like, I don't know what he's saying.
Well done. Well played. Well played. Well done. Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's like
humor into this very series.
Right.
I got you. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Jeez. I mean, it's like maybe like to play devil's advocate on Adnan's statement. It's like the Bucks don't really have the most lethal pass rush, so maybe you'll be okay.
Hopefully Hassan Reddick is still washed. Hopefully
I'm putting all my eggs in that basket. All the shit I talked about there. Yeah.
Football game
yeah.
For a second year.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Bucks have some injuries too.
They do.
Like Wirtz is out, McMillan's going to be out for a while, Godwin's going to be out probably, Winfield maybe. So
Tyke Smith was missing practice too. So I mean, yeah, that's
they're the walking wounded right now.
yeah. So maybe that I think they could probably handle the Panthers without Kaleb McGary. Again, that's probably the worst or close to the worst defense in football still. So maybe like if they could, I feel like if they could just find a way to beat the Bucs and beat the Panthers, and then you can lose the rest of those. I mean, I don't want that, but like
that Vikings game could be very, very
that's gonna be scary. No wonder about that. No minced words there. That's gonna be a frightening matchup for sure. Thankfully their secondary might be cheeks, so maybe you can just like play max protect and just ask Drake London to go beat their bad corners. But we'll see.
I will say, no matter what, no matter what context you give it, this fan base is going to be, absolutely distraught and livid if this team is 2-5 at any point this year. Like it's going to be bad. Like it's going to be really, really bad.
I feel like if they could just beat the Bucs and the Panthers, and then go into the bye week and hopefully get Storm Norton back, like I think they'll be okay. But if they lose to like the Bucs and the Panthers and they're like 0-4 going into the bye, then we're gonna panic. Like we can light the fires of destruction and panic.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll be leading Falcons Twitter in that. But I will say that the actual silver lining here is we were sort of harping on the early bye, and now it could be something that potentially saves the team, given the fact that, if Norton is out through the bye, that extra week could be exactly what and potentially McGary, it could be exactly what this team needs to sort of get healthy.
Yeah, that's important to note. We got a couple more questions here. We got Alex Foster once again with the $5. Thank you, Alex. Appreciate you. Saying, to be fair, nothing the Falcons do is normal anymore, so maybe doing something weird in this case might work. Yeah, I mean, I'd be willing to try pretty much anything. I mean, if McGary's out for the year, like, bold action is required, so they may have to get creative there. We got Callas with the 2. I think that's how you say it. Let me know if that's correct, Callas. Saying, brutal Orly schedule makes this so much worse. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't help, but part of me is like, oh, well, maybe we were going to lose, like, many of these games anyway. So just, like, it's okay. Not a big deal. Like, I would kind of hate it if, like, this happened in the middle of the season, like, during the soft schedule, and it's like, oh, this, like, derails what's supposed to be their easy stretch. So maybe they can just do what we need them to do anyway and just, like, get Norton back going into, like, week 6, week 7, and just clean up in that easier stretch after these hard games, and maybe it'll be okay. I don't know.
The question is, does this team have the mental fortitude to bounce back from like a potential like 2-5 start to really start cleaning up on some of those like mid-tier teams?
I mean, who knows on that account? I would say like this coaching staff would be doing the players a disservice. They didn't if they haven't been preparing them for like a really rough like September and probably October as well. Just like mentally preparing them for like, this is going to be brutal. Like this is going to be a battle each and every week until we get through this stretch. We just got to keep our composure and keep going and keep these games close, steal as many as we can. And then clean up in the second half. And when have the Falcons ever struggled to win in the second half? I don't remember a time. Certainly not in 2016. Definitely didn't happen.
If there's one team that has mental fortitude, it's the Atlanta Falcons.
Hey, look, it's not as if the Falcons have been in first place midway through the season the last 3 years and then figured out a way to not win the division every single year. So finishing strong is really what this team does better than any other team in the history of sport.
But also maybe that's the recipe. Maybe
there you go.
They don't in first place. Maybe if they're in third place, then things flip.
Yeah, it's just when they're a front runner, that's when it all falls apart. They gotta be the plucky second place team that's fighting from behind. See, okay, maybe that's the secret to making the playoffs is to not be good and just be lucky, because that's what the Bucs kind of were last year. It was like, well,
I'm on your team now, Kevin. 2-4 start. Let's go for it.
Yeah, that's the secret. That's what we've been missing this whole time. Okay, I'm glad we figured that out, guys. That like and subscribe. Yeah.
I can't believe it only took one injury to 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 derail us into this.
Yep, just jump, do like the guy and just stand up, walk right out the window, and jump out. Yeah, that's the Falcons, first 6 games of the season, just, throw in the towel. But I, on a lighter note, I don't think this is like, you should just think this is going to derail the Falcons season entirely. I certainly wouldn't go there until we hear the extent of McGary's injury. So I would caution everyone to just take a deep breath. I mean, Eagles fans were in this predicament with Landon Dickerson. That ended up, of course, being like best case scenario. He was just not even going to miss time going into the season. I mean, like, you missed the whole preseason, obviously, but given the timeline now, like, I would be shocked if McGary doesn't miss some time. But, I wouldn't rule out a return in September or anything like that. It's just like, you also can't rule out the worst case scenario of he's going to miss the whole season. So that's just sort of the space that we're in.
And it could be good news that we haven't heard anything yet, because with some of these very serious injuries, with some of them you tend to know right away.
Yeah. I mean, my guess, and whether this is just complete speculation, but like, I think if it was one of the obvious season enders that are pretty easy to detect on an MRI, we would probably have heard that. So it's probably not one of those. But other than that, I don't know anything. Like, we don't know anything at all. So it could easily be something else that's devastating, or it could be that the prognosis isn't exactly clear and they're trying to get more clarity on it. So, whatever that is, we'll hope for the best. And if McGary, we could get away with McGary just missing a little time. We've seen that he can deal with some missing some time and come back and finish strong. Like, last year he missed some games, was fine afterwards and all that. So I'm not too concerned about him. Like, if he can come back, and get in there, I'm pretty confident that he'll be okay for the season. But it's just, tough stuff. So we'll continue to monitor this. Keep your eyes on Twitter and on the Falcoholic.com and on Locked On Falcons too. We'll obviously give you guys an update as soon as we get one. But in the meantime, a couple other things to touch on real quick that are a little bit less, devastating to our souls. So one of them is Natrone Brooks' hive also flourishing, like absolutely flourishing. I don't know if there's a hive this preseason. No, I'm saying like that. I don't know if there's a hive this preseason that's been more like vindicated than Natrone Brooks' hive. That like now, Morris has done, which the thing that I was kind of questioning like a week or two ago when we saw kind of neither D. Alford or Billy Bowman really stand out. It's like, well, Natrone Brooks is standing out like every single day, and you already have 2 outside starters. So, maybe Natrone Brooks should just play nickel where he's already played before. And lo and behold, Raheem Morris says Natrone Brooks will play nickel corner in the preseason game this week. So I think that's a good development because I think he legitimately might be their best nickel corner right now. Adnan, what do you think about that one?
Yeah, I mean, they started training camp with Natrone Brooks being one of the 3 men in that battle between he, D. Alford, and Billy Bowman. And I think just like a few days into it, they're like, yeah, never mind. We're actually just going to put Natrone to the outside instead. And for Natrone, it's sort of been an iron sharpens iron type thing because he's been the main guy who's been guarding Drake London for like all of camp because the 2s are facing the 1s on both sides. And I mean, Natrone Brooks, only cornerback to intercept Michael Penix, this training camp, by the way. He had that, interception against the Titans. Yeah, I mean, at this point, we all have high hopes for Billy Bowman, but that doesn't have to mean that he has to meet those hopes right away in week 1. Natrone Brooks has been the most impressive cornerback, outside of the starters, obviously, throughout camp. And I'm excited. I mean, that's something that I'm really excited to watch here on Friday. Just this Natrone Brooks development, especially as someone that's been, pounding that Natrone Brooks drum during training camp for the last 3 years. I feel very vindicated right now.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Trone Brooks. I've been a fan of his for a while, so I would not be upset at all to see him get the shout out there. And where's your position on Trone Brooks, Aaron? I don't remember from the last time we talked.
Yeah. I'm a big Natrone Brooks guy. I did not have him on my 53-man roster back at the beginning of training camp, just because like I was in a dark place, and I was like, of course the Falcons are going to do something dumb and cut Natrone Brooks, and so therefore I predicted it. But it does feel like those of us that have been pushing the Natrone Brooks bandwagon are pulling it. Not a lot of horsepower up to this point, but now we got some new rims on that thing. We revving this thing up. So I'm a big believer going back to like January, where it was like, let's have a competition. Let's get Natrone Brooks in the mix and see if he can be better than D. Alford. I think there's reasons to believe that he can be an upgrade over D. Alford at that nickel cornerback spot. And then obviously the Falcons wind up drafting Billy Bowman, and it's like, oh, okay, I guess Billy Bowman's fine, sure, whatever. I'm not the world's biggest Billy Bowman guy. Like, he's fine, but like, I'm not super excited about him this year, like many other people in the fan base are. So hearing that Natrone Brooks is getting some love, I'm just like, yeah, this is up my wheelhouse. So I'm a big fan of this move, and hopefully we'll get to see him, show out on Friday night against the Cowboys, and potentially be out there and locking up dudes as the team's primary nickel when we get to September.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Billy Bowman's like, it's going to be more of a transition from a guy playing safety to the slot. Like, I think it was always going to be either he like just takes to it like naturally, and he's like, we're pretty sure he's the starter leaving camp, or it's going to be like maybe he's competing for the job like as the season goes on, sort of thing. And I think we're definitely in the second part of that, where it's going to take some time for him. But I think the team still really likes him. I know Morris said today, like, he's going to play snaps for us. Like, we're going to get him out there. But my guess is like he might kind of start as like a hybrid safety corner, just guy they can have active as a special teamer and as like a deep depth guy, like in case they have multiple injuries, that can do a little bit of everything for you. So we'll see how he develops. But speaking of corners, CJ Henderson picks off Mike Penix today in practice, already playing with the second team defense.
I guess Burks isn't the only cornerback to pick off Penix. I didn't read today's report.
So CJ Henderson out there, he's playing with the second string. Raheem Morris was very effusive in praise for CJ Henderson, said he has elite movement, and he's really impressed with his ability to get out there quickly and get reps despite only being here for a few days. So, I was pretty much of the mind when they signed CJ Henderson that they're like, well, this is just Jerry Gray's latest pet project. He loves those first round corners, and who could blame him? They're first rounders for a reason, but it's been a minute since CJ Henderson has been a starting caliber corner. But here in Atlanta, just competing for maybe like the 5th or 6th spot. So could be, and apparently he did choose Atlanta over multiple other suitors. So yeah, I mean, does anybody have CJ Henderson takes? I mean, I think at this point, like that CB6 spot in particular is like totally up for grabs. Like Lamar Jackson has kind of lost his hold on it. Who knows what the team thinks of Clark Phillips or D. Alford or any of these guys. So, I mean, there's an opportunity here for someone to step up.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like Lamar Jackson has really sort of opened the door a little bit, especially given where he was a few weeks ago, where I think after that first depth chart came out, Lamar Jackson was like the top outside corner. Now he's had 2 really bad weeks, in preseason. And all of a sudden, you have, I feel like there was maybe a reason why Henderson chose Atlanta over other places. And that's because in Atlanta, he'll have the best chance at making the 53-man roster, because honestly, I think Clark Phillips is cooked. I think he'll be maybe a practice squad guy, but I can't imagine him making the 53. And that CB6 spot right now, like you said, it's completely up for grabs.
Yeah, Aaron, what do you think about the state of that bottom of the depth chart at corner and CJ Henderson's chances here?
Yeah, I mean, when they first signed him, I was like, yeah, there's a shot, there's an outside shot, but it didn't feel like it was going to break his way just because the timeline, Like he just wouldn't be here long enough to really make a positive impression. But then Kobe Bryant gets injured. Clark Phillips is still missing time. And, Lamar Jackson's fallen off. And then it's like, okay, well, it's like, going to keep Mike Ford and D. Alford. Okay. Like, all right, yeah, man, we've seen some great play from these guys so much over the years. Like, yeah. So it does feel like CJ Henderson has a legit shot now when it just felt like before he was just kind of a body that they were just renting to get through the preseason. And I think if he can go out there on Friday night and make a couple of plays, like I think legitimately he could sneak on this roster, especially now with Clark Phillips. Because this whole time I've just been assuming, Clark Phillips will come back and he'll have a roster spot waiting for him. And now I don't make that assumption. So I feel like CJ Henderson really could steal Clark Phillips's spot specifically as that sort of proven depth, outside corner type guy.
Yeah, and it's like, I think everything you said makes a ton of sense. Same to you, Adnan. I think with CJ Henderson, I think it was clear they were looking for a Lamar Jackson type, like a big outside corner to back up their outside corners, not necessarily another small slot type. And I think Clark Phillips' thing is like he's just small. He's a small outside corner, and he's not really a slot guy. So that was always going to make his projection a little bit iffy. It's why he fell to the 4th round. CJ Henderson is that type of big outside corner depth piece that the Falcons are probably looking for. So I think that helps his chances a lot, and that he is the archetype that they want, especially if Detrone Brooks is maybe going to be starting in the slot, because Brooks was kind of their top outside backup. He's got kind of the same issue as Phillips did, and that he would be a small outside corner for sure. That didn't seem to slow him down as much. But he's been playing mostly against backups in preseason, so keep that in mind. But we'll see what Henderson looks like in the preseason, but it's the spot's up for grabs. I mean, Lamar Jackson, I think, has shown that he's very limited athletically. And the one thing you could definitely say about CJ Henderson is like he's got the athleticism. It was just like, can he actually put it all together to become a starting caliber corner? And he had flashes at times, but also a lot of struggles, and sometimes those guys need extra time. I mean, this team did extract like meaningful snaps out of Kevin King for like multiple years. So not that like I hope that maybe CJ Henderson can be a little bit more than that, but I think everybody assumed when they signed Kevin King, it's like, oh, well, this is not anything. Like he's not making. They found it. They found a roster spot for Kevin King. Never underestimate Jerry Gray's desire to resurrect the careers.
Maybe they bring Kevin King back again. Who knows?
We can't rule it out. Yeah. I would be surprised. And yes, I believe CJ Henderson and AJ Terrell were in the same draft class.
Hey, one of those was a top 10 pick, and it wasn't AJ.
Yeah, that in hindsight was a very good pick.
All I know is we got Jeff Okudah, we got CJ Henderson, we got AJ Terrell, Damon Arnett. He was in the UFL this spring. He's the next first round corner from that 2020 draft class. So
that's right. So if he gets cut by the Texans, then we'll be right there, I'm sure. So let me check. I think there was maybe one more notable thing here. Pretty much everybody of note is not going to play in the preseason. I think we all knew that, but Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. aren't going to play, although Jalen Walker is back at practice. So that's nice. The other thing, linebacker Troy Anderson, not ruled out for week 1, but also not ruled in. So, I don't really know what to take away from that statement other than what?
Are we sure that Troy Anderson isn't just a figment of our imagination?
I don't know. An interesting statement. I believe Morris was trying to say that he's close, but I feel like he could have just cut both sentences from that answer away and be like, yeah, Troy's close. We feel good about where he is. We're hoping that he'll be ready, for week 1. He could have just said that, but this is the most cryptic version of that answer where it's like, yeah, I'm not going to rule him out, but I'm also not going to rule him in.
Yeah, well, okay. What is he, the Riddler?
Okay.
I thought it was interesting because when he was like, "We'll see where Troy is." He initially said, "We'll see where Troy is in a couple of months," and then he was like, "Oh, and then or a couple of weeks." Like he had to like back that, and so. But then he said something I thought was interesting, which was he was talking about the knee injury, and he said he had something similar in his other knee when he was in college, and so I went down a Google rabbit hole to try to figure out what exactly that knee injury was. And you know how colleges they just say, "Oh, he had a lower leg injury." So I don't know the specific knee injury that Troy Anderson suffered, but he did injure himself in the playoffs in 2019. He had surgery on it the following spring and then sat out that year. It was a COVID year, so they wouldn't have played football anywhere. And he was back the next summer. So if we're just using the similar timeline, and he got injured in October of last year, so maybe he's back in November. That's kind of my takeaway if I'm trying to read into all the cryptic things that Raheem Morris said, but like that's all I really got from it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I have no take other than like, well, I don't think this changes anything. It's like I have no idea. He you know, I don't know what to tell you guys. I assume Troy Anderson will begin the season on PUP. That's pretty much where I'm at. If he doesn't, if they take him off PUP, then great. But yeah, I would not expect anything from Troy Anderson this year.
Look, man, I'm at the point where I'm done counting on Troy Anderson.
Yeah.
Just in general on this team, and it's
it pains me greatly. But
if he can give you literally anything, just take that as a pleasant surprise this year. And if not, then it's like it's like investing in crypto. It's like
Please continue. Yeah.
I did not.
We're just going deep down the reference. Like tonight, we're hitting everything. Nothing is safe tonight. Yeah.
Look, basically the point I'm trying to make is when you invest in crypto, you just have to pretend like that money isn't there. You have to pretend like it's gone. It's gone forever. And then later on, if it turns a profit, then you're pleasantly surprised. Whereas if it completely crashes, then you've already assumed that it's gone.
Yeah, it's like NFTs, like you buy the monkey JPEG or whatever, and
honestly,
yeah.
That's probably a much better example because crypto is actually valuable.
Some cryptos actually are valuable, indeed. Yeah,
NFTs and Troy Anderson are about one and the same when it comes to their value at this point.
Yeah. So Troy Anderson equal monkey JPEG. You decide, I guess. We'll see. We'll see how that story develops over the remainder of the season. But yeah, unfortunately, Troy Anderson. The fact that he didn't participate at all this summer is really bad. It's a really bad sign. So we'll have to see. But the team, clearly is still interested in him. I think that if they weren't, they would have already just waived injured him and just let him go. I think they're still interested in him, but I think they're like, what are we even going to get to see him again? Who knows? But yeah, that's kind of where the Falcons are with that. So we'll hope that Anderson comes back healthy. But yeah, after checking on the playoff odds, I did want to check on the over under on the Falcons wins real quick just to see if that's moved. I don't think it has. Yeah, I think the closest odds for Atlanta are still over 8.5 wins is plus 110. So that's the closest odds right now per FanDuel. So yeah, the win total still right around that 8 to 9 mark, which I think is about right. And again, at this point, I'm not really moving anything. Like I'm not prepared to make any big proclamations. If Kaleb McGary is legitimately out for the year, I think you probably need to round down to the 9 win, because I would have been at 10, so maybe I'd round it down to 9, but so I'd still be over 8.5 wins. But because I think McGary's definitely worth a win. But it's just we'll have to see. We'll have to see how it pans out, and it's concerning and very sad. And I hope that we get McGary back soon. But at this point, we don't know anything else. So we've shared everything we've known with you guys. We've given our best attempts at fixing the situation or addressing it or just throwing random crap at the wall and seeing if anything can help. musical chairs perhaps on the offensive line. Hopefully none of that will be necessary, and it'll be a big precautionary measure with McGary. He'll be back in the first month of the season, but if not, you guys have heard our best guesses at what the team might do, and we hope maybe one of those guesses will work, or at least marginally help the team get through until maybe Storm Norton can come back in a month or so, a month and a half. But thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate that. I think we made the best of it. We worked in a lot of references, more references than I was expecting. We started strong and finished strong. So great work there by both of you guys.
Maybe preseason, but we're in midseason form right now.
With the references for sure. Yeah, this is elite stuff. We got Brandon Brass with the $2 says Cousins for a decent right tackle to tide us over. I mean, if somebody wants to make that deal, like, okay. But I kind of feel like it would be like borderline like team suicide, like to like trade your starting tackle and then bring in Kirk Cousins. Like, I feel like that's pretty terrifying. Like, oh yeah, let's just trade away our right tackle and it'll be fine. Like, Cousins definitely doesn't need strong protection. That's definitely not something that he needs to be successful. That'll be okay. So I find that proposition like difficult, Brandon, but I don't like if teams wanting to do it, like I'll definitely pick up the phone on that one. But yeah, it might be dicey, but I mean, I certainly wouldn't mind, having Cousins as a trade asset in that scenario, certainly. But yeah, before we sign off, please like and subscribe, guys. Really appreciate you for that. Leave us a 5-star in your podcast platform of choice. If you want to sign up for the fantasy leagues, patreon.com/Falcoholic Live or the YouTube channel memberships, make sure you fill out the Google form that's posted there by Saturday. That's when we're going to be closing the leagues. So please do that, even if you played last year, please. And yeah, I want to shout out, of course, Aaron Freeman at Locked On Falcons. Aaron, thanks so much for coming on tonight. Great to have you. What are you working on over there at Locked On Falcons?
Well, not falling into an existential crisis over this, we got to pace that out over the next 2 weeks. So working on that, doing a lot of Michael Penix breakdowns with various folks as well. And then obviously next week we'll be talking about cuts and whatnot. So, tune in to Locked On Falcons. As miserable as you feel right now, we can make it even more miserable over at Locked On Falcons. So go check it out on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yeah, go check it out, guys. There may be pain, but maybe we can get through it together, or not. But yeah, that it's better. It's maybe easier together, maybe. And also, of course, co-host Adnan Ikic at Say Which Way. Adnan, anything you're working on?
I'm just plugging the Falcoholic.com. Check out my last article talking about the winners and losers from the game against Tennessee. Tried to go a little in depth talking about some of the things we can read through the tea leaves when it comes to possible potential roster battles and just who the winners and who the losers are. And unfortunately, I did place the backup offensive line as one of my losers again. So that sort of shows where we're at right now with this step.
Yeah, just kicking them while they're down, just it's like, wow, yeah, good stuff. No, good stuff there. Definitely check out Adnan's column, guys, over there on the Falcoholic.com. Let us know how you feel about the new look. I think I like it.
I like it. I like WordPress.
On mobile, like we're working on it, guys. If you've been one of the people that have reached out to say like the feed is taking up too much space on the mobile like site, yes, we've communicated that and agree with you. So that they're working on it. This is like a whole thing rollout, and they're I think that getting it all functional within like a day was kind of an achievement. It seems like so. Hopefully the rest of it will fall into place soon. But yeah. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on the Falcoholic Live. We'll be back, of course, on Friday for our third and final preseason watch party. The Falcons taking on the Cowboys at Jerry World. So that'll be interesting, I'm sure. Not sure what the preseason line is there. I'm gonna do us all a favor and not mention that on this show, so that way you're not tempted to go bet on the preseason. But if you want to, fanduel.com, shout out. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll see you next time on the Falcoholic Live for the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast. Just a couple weeks away now from week 1. It's exciting. Hopefully we'll get good news on Kaleb McGary before the next time we see you guys on Friday. So fingers crossed for that. But until next time, guys, thanks so much for joining us. Have a great night, folks.